Hi, and welcome to my channel. So my name is Emily, this is my channel Books for Life, and thank you so much for being here. So today I wanted to talk about 5 different books for your classroom library that deal with mental health. So I figured since May is Mental Health Awareness Month, that this would be an awesome opportunity to talk about how you could incorporate and make available young adult literature that has mental health topics within them. So I have 4 different contemporary novels and 1 fantasy novel to share with you today. So this first book is written by an author that I really love. I have actually not had a chance to read this book yet, but I am hoping to read it at some point this year, and this would be Winter Girls by Laurie Halse Anderson. Now, I absolutely love Laurie Halse Anderson. You could also pull in Speak, which would deal with mental health because the main character in Speak is depressed. So in this book, you have 2 main female protagonists, Leah and Cassie. And Leah and Cassie are both best friends, and they both struggle with eating disorders. They have like this competition as to who can be the skinniest. Cassie ends up dying. And so now Leah is depressed and she feels guilty, and she is struggling with, I'm not sure if it's anorexia or bulimia. I think it is anorexia. And so this is about a young girl's struggle to hold on to hope. So another book that has a female protagonist is Willow by Julia Hoban, and I have not read this one either. I have had a few students read this one and really like it, but this one is about this girl named Willow, and Willow's parents were out drinking and they got pretty intoxicated and they could not drive home, so instead they had Willow drive them home. And unfortunately along the way, Willow loses control of the car and they end up crashing, and she kills both of her parents. Willow now has to live with her older brother, who is barely speaking to her, and she is depressed. She's really struggling to deal with the loss of her parents, her brother's hatred, and she begins self-harming herself. So you have a lot of different things happening. You have just like the typical grief that comes with losing your parents, but then you also have the guilt that comes with being the driver of the car that lost control. You have the brother's hatred. So there's a lot of different things going on in this book. I imagine that this is a pretty heavy book to read, as are most of these, and I definitely want to get to this one soon. So our next book actually has a male protagonist, and his name is Caden, and this is from Challenger Deep by Neil Shusterman. And I did read this one, and I remember at first being very confused, but then as you get towards the end, it all makes more sense. And I had no idea going into this what this was about, but this is about a main character who deals with schizophrenia. And so Caden, so you end up like jumping around a little bit. In one part of the story, he is a teenager at school dealing with school issues, and the other part, he is on a pirate ship. It is confusing, and it is beautifully done the way that this entire story comes together, and you figure out what is really happening and why. And so in his like school life, his peers begin realizing that something is not quite right with Caden, and they don't know what is going on and how to help him. And I read this one a couple years ago. I really enjoyed it, and you really see how this main character is completely torn. The next story that I have for you actually has 3 different protagonists in it. You have Feyre, Haran, and Nathaniel. This is I Have Lost My Way by Gail Forman. I read this last summer and I really enjoyed this. And so all 3 of these main characters are lost in their own way, and then they end up coming together in New York City. Now this specifically deals with anxiety. One of the characters is afraid to come out to his family and is dealing with that like pressure. He doesn't know if he will be accepted. He's afraid to say anything, and so he's living in that. And then the only female character, Feyre, is dealing with anxiety and peer pressure because she was becoming pretty famous on YouTube for her singing, and for some reason she has lost her voice, and she was just about to sign like a record deal and all of these things, so she's dealing with a lot of anxiety. And then you have another character who is dealing with depression. He has lost his father and he doesn't know what else to do, and he is planning on committing suicide. So you have all 3 of these characters who are in their own world and dealing with their own problems, who end up colliding quite literally in the park and their lives become intertwined and they end up impacting each other in ways that they never could have foreseen. I loved this story. It was truly touching. I think I gave this 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 stars when I read it last summer. I don't remember off the top of my head, but I really enjoyed this. And the last one I do not have with me, so I will leave a picture of it here. And this is actually a fantasy novel. And I love that more and more fantasy novels are having protagonists that are dealing with mental health. So this is called Tess of the Road by Rachel Hartman. So in this story, we have the main character, Tess, and she stands out. She does not want to conform to society standards. She ends up doing some of her own things, and her parents just end up not being able to deal with her anymore, so they sent her off to a nunnery. Tess decides that this is not the life for her, so she ends up walking away from everything she has ever known, and along her path, something happens that ends up triggering past traumas. And so Tess is now dealing with PTSD, and she has to figure out how she is going to deal with her violent past in order to move forward and have a bright future. And so this does take place in a different world, and we are following Tess as she is moving along her journey and this new path of discovery. I have so many other books that I could include in this, and actually as I was filming it I was thinking, oh yeah, what about this one and what about this one? So let me know down below what your thoughts are, if you have read any of these books, if you have any great recommendations for young adult literature that deals with mental health that would be appropriate for a classroom library. Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. So if you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure that you do. I will be back with more bookish videos soon. As always, keep reading!